Alright, so today we're working on one-step inequalities that use addition or subtraction as their one operation. We're going to look at finding the value of the variable and how do we graph inequalities and how is that graphing different than graphing the solution of an equation. When we look at example number 1, we have x plus 4 is less than 3. And of course our goal is to find the value of x. Remember that to isolate our variable, we want to do the opposite operation. So we have x plus 4, and the inverse, or the opposite of addition, is subtraction. So we are going to write subtraction for our fill in the blank. Okay. And we're going to come down to our inequality. And the plus 4 is on the same side as our variable, so we're going to write minus 4. We are using the algebraic model here, so whatever you do to the left side, you have to do to the right side. I know that plus 4 and minus 4 are opposite numbers that equal 0. X plus 0 is just going to leave me with my variable x. And then 3 minus 4 gives me negative 1. And to graph that, you want to use a number line. So we're just going to draw a small number line. It doesn't need to be perfect. Number lines don't necessarily have to start at any particular number. So I would suggest that you just take that value that is your solution, put it in the middle of the number line, put a couple of tick marks on the left side and on the right side, and then just number up and number down. Okay? This is a less than, so we're going to use what is called an open circle. And I'm just going to scroll down a little bit. On the bottom of your notes, you have graphing inequalities with some examples. Okay? And we are looking at less than. So if you see here, when we are working with less than, we are going to graph with an open circle. And then we're going to draw that arrow to the left. So we're going to come back up to our inequality, and since our solution is negative 1, we're going to draw an open circle, and we are going to draw that arrow to the left. If you are graphing an inequality and you cannot remember which way do I draw my arrow, I just suggest you take a look at your inequality sign, put a stick in it, and notice you've created an arrow. And this arrow points exactly in the same direction as the arrow that we just put on our graph. And that is a way for you to make sure that you have graphed your solution in the correct direction. The reason we use an open circle when we're graphing a less than or a greater than value is because that shows the solution is that value, but the answer cannot be exactly that number in order for it to be a true statement. For example, I came up with negative 1 as my solution, but I have a less than sign here. If I added negative 1 to positive 4, that would not be less than 3, that would be equal to 3. So the open circle shows that the solution cannot be exactly 1, but it can be anything that is less, or negative 1, but it can be anything that is less than negative 1. If you had wanted to use your circle diagram model, you could have done that. Remember that we always start with a circle that represents the variable. We use a line segment to represent our operation of plus 4. We only have one operation. So we're going to go ahead and draw another circle, and we're going to put the answer, which is 3, in there. Then on the top of that line segment, you do minus 4 because that's the inverse of plus 4. Then you work backwards from your answer. 3 minus 4 gives you negative 1. And so you'll notice that we have the same solution. X is less than negative 1. So you could use whichever model you wanted, the algebraic model or the circle diagram model. Example number 2, we have x minus 6 is greater than 8. We know that the inverse of subtraction is addition. So we are going to add 6 to both sides of our inequality. Plus 6 and minus 6 equals 0, which leaves us with x. And then 8 plus 6 is going to be 14. So the solution for this inequality is x is greater than 14. If you had wanted to use your circle model, you start with a circle that represents the variable, your line segment -6, and then the answer, which is 8. You're going to do the inverse of -6, which is +6, and you're going to work backwards. 8 plus 6 is 14. So you get the same solution. You get x is greater than 14 as your solution. We are going to graph that now. So once again, you're going to draw a number line, and remember, your number line doesn't need to be perfect. You're just showing that you understand the general concept of where the solution lies on the number line and that you understand how to graph that. So I'm just going to put 14 in the middle of the number line. Put 2 values on each side of it. And again, we're going to use an open circle because this is less than. Okay? I'm going to look at my inequality sign, which is less than. Put a stick in it. I know that my arrow now needs to point to the right. Greater than. I think I said less than. Greater than. Okay? So our solution is x is greater than 14, and we have our arrow pointing to the right because greater than goes to the right. Example number 3. 7 is greater than or equal to x minus 8. Our inequality sign here has a bar underneath our greater than, and we read that as greater than or equal to. Also, we want to pay attention. We have some special information on here that is very important. It tells us if the variable is on the right side of the inequality, then we're going to need to flip the inequality statement as well as this inequality sign before we graph our inequality. Okay? So if you look at this particular inequality, you will see that in fact our variable is on the right side of our inequality. We're going to go ahead and solve it first, and then we can flip it. So I have x minus 8 on the right side. I'm going to add a positive 8 to both sides of that inequality. I'm going to cross out the minus 8 and the plus 8 because they equal 0. And then 7 plus 8 will give me 15. I need to flip that so that I can graph it correctly. When we graph, we want the variable to be on the left so that we can make sure we put our arrow on the graph going the correct direction. Notice that the small point of my inequality sign is facing toward my variable. So if I change the order and put the variable over here on the left, and the value of my solution on the right, then I need to change the direction of my inequality sign as well. And if you'll notice, the point is now still facing toward the variable. So that means that our solution is x is less than or greater to 15. Greater than 15. We are going to go ahead and graph that again. This is a little bit different. Notice we said that it is greater than or equal to. That actually means that my solution could be exactly 15, or it could be any number that is less than 15. We're going to use what's called a closed circle when we graph that value. That's the point that we've been using when we graphed our equations. And we're going to look at our inequality sign. We notice that it's pointing to the left. So we're going to make our arrow point to the left on our graph. Okay? We have one more that we're going to do, and that is -5 is less than or greater to 3 plus x. We are using addition, or this is a positive 3. If you want to rewrite that, you can. You don't have to. You may want to rewrite that as -5 is less than or equal to x plus 3. If that makes you feel more comfortable, that's fine. And we know it's plus 3 because this 3 is positive. So that means that we're going to subtract 3 from both sides of our inequality. 3 minus 3 will give me my 0 pair. It leaves me with just x on the right-hand side. -5 minus 3 will give me a -8. And again, we're going to flip that around, and we're going to make that x is greater than or equal to -8. And the reason that we flip that, again, is to make sure that when we graph it, we're going to graph it with our arrow pointing in the correct direction. -8 has to be on my number line because it is my solution. So I'm just going to work my way up with a couple of numbers on the right hand side and work my way down with a couple of numbers on the left side. Again, this is greater than or equal to. So once again, I want to use that closed circle because the solution could be exactly -8. I'm going to look at my inequality sign, put a stick in it. I notice that my arrow is pointing to the right. So I'm going to make the arrow on my graph point to the right as well. Also, if you're not certain, remember that you've got the other half of your notes, and you can go down and look at them, and it shows you, if you have less than, then you're going to graph with an open circle pointing to the left, and it tells you that with words over here as well. And it tells you that where you're greater than, you're less than or equal to, and you're greater than or equal to, exactly how you would graph those.